Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's every coach's frustration when you have to use challenges on out of bounds plays. I mean, it is what it is. But for teams to win 3 challenges in the first half, I don't know that I've ever seen that either. It's tough. But at the same time, for us, it started with our energy and on the defensive end of the floor. We were flat to start. We dug ourselves a hole. We didn't take care of the ball. We didn't handle their physicality. I mean, that's going to be the MO against us all year long. Teams are going to be physical. They're gonna push us. They're gonna shove us.
The Indiana Fever suffered their first heartbreaking loss of the season in a nail-biting 91-90 defeat to the Atlanta Dream. But the real story here isn't just about the 1-point margin. It's about Fever head coach Stephanie White absolutely erupting after witnessing what might be the most blatantly biased officiating we've seen in the WNBA this season. The coach, who normally maintains her composure, completely lost it when the refs seemed determined to hand this game to Atlanta on a silver platter, despite Caitlin Clark putting on yet another historic performance that further cements her status as the greatest phenomenon in women's basketball history.
There has to be some kind of better replay system or some kind of better review system where the referees can just go look at the screen whenever they want and get the call right, because she had to use both of her challenges in the first half on plays that seemed pretty obvious, and instead of the referees going to say, we're going to go look at this, Stephanie White had to use her challenge. She used them both. She was successful in both, but you only get 2. If you win the first one, then you get a second one, otherwise you get no more. So by the third quarter, when there were still more calls that she could have and should have probably questioned, she couldn't.
It's become an all too familiar pattern for Clark and the Fever. Despite being the WNBA's most electrifying new talent, Clark has been on the receiving end of a staggering 17% of all flagrant fouls in the league this season. Yet, rather than offering her the protection afforded to other stars, officials have repeatedly swallowed their whistles, allowing defenders to get away with physical play that borders on reckless. The numbers don't lie. Clark is being targeted, and the referee's reluctance to call it straight has become a storyline that threatens the credibility of the league.
Jokes aside, Brittany Griner was an absolute beast tonight, but I'm not sure there was a bigger beast in the arena than the officiating in this game, which was absolutely brutal.
Tuesday night's game against Atlanta was a case study in this ongoing problem. On 3 separate occasions, the referees made calls against the Fever that were so questionable, Coach White had no choice but to challenge them. This isn't just a matter of human error, it's a glaring indictment of the officiating standard. If a coach has to use every challenge just to get obvious calls corrected, something is fundamentally broken with how these games are being managed.
But I will stand by this. This is the worst referee game I've ever watched. And there were some horrendous calls both ways. Absolutely horrendous calls. The majority of horrendous calls went against the Fever.
The impact on the game was immediate and profound. Each time a foul was missed or miscalled, it disrupted Indiana's flow and forced Clark, who was already carrying a historic load on offense, to play through even more adversity. Instead of letting her talent shine, the referees put up unnecessary obstacles, robbing fans of the chance to see the game's best player operate at her full potential. Clark's vision on the court last night was nothing short of supernatural. She was threading passes through defensive schemes that looked like she had access to some basketball cheat code the rest of us haven't discovered yet. This isn't just another great player having another great game. What Clark is doing transcends individual performances. Just 3 days before this game, she recorded a triple-double with 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists against Chicago. The consistency is what's truly mind-boggling here. She's averaging nearly 20 points and 8 assists this season, shooting over 34% from beyond the arc and maintaining an absurd 90.6% from the free throw line. And yet, despite this unprecedented excellence, the officials seem determined to make her path as difficult as possible.
And the fouls. Oh my God, the refs in this game. They were just calling every ticky-tacky foul. The game stoppage was just overwhelming. And, there were a lot of fouls that actually did happen. There were a lot of fouls I saw that happen that weren't called. But the ticky-tack fouls, this was extra. Connor, Caitlin's boyfriend, even posted at the beginning of the game. He puts the referees on blast and he says, "Good to see the W refs in mid-season form." And of course, he deleted it a few minutes later.
If you are enjoying, please subscribe. If you thought the officiating against Clark and the Fever couldn't get any worse this season, last night's game against Atlanta was a masterclass in how to completely undermine the integrity of professional basketball. Coach Stephanie White was forced to challenge 3 separate foul calls during crucial moments of the game, and won all 3 challenges. Let that sink in for a minute. The refs got 3 major calls wrong, all of which just happened to go against the Fever. Coincidence? I think not. The first challenge came early in the second quarter when Clark was called for a phantom foul while perfectly contesting a dream shooter. The replay showed absolutely zero contact, yet somehow these officials, with their supposedly professional-grade eyesight, saw a foul that existed only in their imagination. White immediately signaled for the challenge, and after review, the call was overturned. 1 challenge used, 1 terrible call corrected. But the refs weren't done there. Midway through the third quarter, Aaliyah Boston was called for a blocking foul when she was clearly established in position for nearly 2 full seconds. It was as textbook a charge as you'll ever see in basketball, yet somehow these officials missed it completely. Once again, White had to burn another challenge, and once again, the call was overturned. That's 2 challenges, 2 reversals.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I just felt like they were trying to punish the Fever for the other night. The referees were horrible tonight. Really poor officiating.
The most egregious error came with just under 4 minutes left in the game, and the Fever down by only 2 points. Clark drove to the basket and was practically clotheslined by a dream defender, a play that in any fair universe would have been called a flagrant foul, but instead, the refs called an offensive foul on Clark. The home crowd erupted in boos, and Coach White looked like she was about to spontaneously combust on the sideline. She used her final challenge, and to no one's surprise, except perhaps these incompetent officials, the call was overturned. This is the exact same pattern of bias we've been seeing against Clark all season. Reports already show that Clark has suffered an absurd 17% of all flagrant fouls in the league this season. Let me repeat that. 1 player is receiving nearly 1/5 of all flagrant fouls in the entire WNBA. If that doesn't scream systematic targeting, I don't know what does. The problem isn't just that White had to challenge these calls, it's that she had to use all 3 of her challenges to correct obvious errors that all went against her team. What happens if there had been a 4th bad call or a 5th? How many more advantages would Atlanta have received if White hadn't been vigilant enough to challenge these absurdities?
My God, the officiating was on full display tonight. It was terrible. Ken Swift, all the national TV exposure, you would think they would want some good officiating to keep the people engaged. This is horrific. It was god-awful. Connor McCaffrey, Caitlin Clark's boyfriend. Good to see the W refs in mid-season form. He cremated them. Good for him. Jason Whitlock. This officiating crew is horrible. Dream, Fever. It was awful. It was terrible. Oh, the refs are hilarious tonight.
With 3.2 seconds left on the clock and the Fever down by 1 point, Coach White made a decision that's going to be analyzed and debated for weeks to come. Instead of setting up a play for Clark to receive the ball and take the final shot, which is what literally every basketball fan in America expected, White designated Clark as the inbounder. This wasn't just a coaching decision. This was a bold statement about trust, team basketball, and refusing to be predictable. White knew that Atlanta's entire defensive scheme would be focused on denying Clark the ball, so she flipped the script entirely. By having Clark inbound, White forced the Dream to completely rethink their defensive approach with just seconds to prepare. "We know everyone expects the ball to be in Caitlin's hands for the last shot," White explained in the post-game press conference, her voice still tight with emotion from the loss and the officiating debacle. "But that's exactly why we had to try something different. They were ready to double, maybe even triple team her. By having her inbound, we created confusion and got a decent look. The play nearly worked to perfection, but White's decision revealed her growing confidence in the entire roster and her willingness to outsmart opponents rather than simply relying on her superstar.
Just going into that last possession, just what did you like about the play with Natasha and just her look?
Yeah, I mean, initially we're trying to get the ball to AB, but she was being chucked, so she couldn't get there. C had a good read. I mean, Tosh was open. We probably should have called timeout in that situation, but I felt like Tosh was due.
Every championship team needs to experience adversity, and this loss, heartbreaking as it was, provides precisely the kind of learning opportunity that could benefit the Fever in the long run. Despite the defeat, there were numerous positive takeaways that should have Indiana fans excited about what's to come this season. First and foremost, the Fever demonstrated remarkable resilience. Even with the refs seemingly determined to hand the game to Atlanta, Indiana fought back from multiple deficits throughout the night. When Clark hit those consecutive three-pointers early in the fourth quarter, she didn't just score points, she ignited a belief throughout the team that no obstacle, not even biased officiating, could stop them. The chemistry between Clark and Boston continues to evolve into one of the most dangerous partnerships in the league. In the first half, Clark set up Boston for a crucial layup that reduced the deficit to just 2 points for the first time since the opening minutes. These two young superstars are developing the kind of intuitive connection that championship duos are made of. Perhaps most encouraging was the defensive intensity the Fever displayed down the stretch. Clark's 5 steals weren't just an individual achievement, they were emblematic of a team-wide commitment to disrupting Atlanta's offensive flow.
For the league being like, yeah, we know we're going to be ref bad. Yeah, we know we're going to be ref badly. We are, and also now, for the players, we can't expect calls. If you go to your players, we can't expect calls. We can't expect the refs to give anything. And I gotta say this is a much better response than something the Christie sides would do. And again, look, I don't know if the Fever have any intricate offenses or anything under Stephanie White, but one thing you know is that as a game manipulator, for lack of a better word, Stephanie White is better. Like, let's be real.
In the midst of the controversy and the narrow defeat, let's not lose sight of the history that was made last night. Caitlin Clark is now the WNBA's all-time leader in 20-point, 10-assist games, and she accomplished this milestone in just 41 professional games. To put this in perspective, some of the greatest players in WNBA history took 200 to 300 games to reach the same number of such performances. This isn't just breaking a record, it's obliterating it. It's redefining what's possible for a WNBA player. Clark isn't just playing well for a second-year player, she's playing at a level that has no historical precedent in women's professional basketball. Her ability to both score at an elite level and create opportunities for teammates is revolutionary. And she's doing all this while being the target of both opposing defenses and, apparently, the officials themselves. Any other player facing this level of adversity might crumble under the pressure, but Clark seems to use it as fuel to elevate her game even further. It's as if each bad call, each missed foul, each unfair treatment just adds another layer to the legend that's being created before our very eyes.
It's one of the craziest stats I've seen yet, and I feel like we say this all the time. Like, wow, this is one of the craziest Caitlin Clark-related stats that I've seen. Evergreen. She has played 42 games. She now has the most 25-point, 10-assist games in WNBA history. 42 games, most 25 and 10 games in WNBA history. She is tied for the most 20 and 10 games in WNBA history. Courtney Vandersloot has 10. Diana Taurasi had 9. Sloot has played 430 games. Taurasi played 565 games. Again, Caitlin Clark has played 42 games. That is unbelievable.
Let's be crystal clear about something. What we witnessed last night wasn't just a few missed calls. It wasn't just human error. It was part of a pattern of officiating that threatens to undermine the integrity of the entire WNBA. When a coach has to use all 3 challenges to correct obvious errors that all happen to disadvantage the same team, that's not coincidence. That's a problem that demands immediate attention from the league office. The WNBA is experiencing unprecedented growth in popularity and visibility, largely thanks to stars like Caitlin Clark. Television ratings are soaring, arenas are selling out, and social media engagement is at an all-time high. Yet the league seems content to allow this substandard officiating to continue unchecked, potentially sabotaging the very product that's finally breaking through to mainstream audiences. Even Clark's Indiana teammate Brianna Turner has voiced concerns that these officiating problems could damage the entire WNBA product in 2025. When players themselves are worried about how officiating is affecting the league's reputation, you know the situation has reached critical mass.
Pretty choppy with, the amount of fouls, the challenges. Just how did that affect you as a point guard and just the team's pace as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, to me, challenges cannot take that long. That's it ruins the flow of the game. I get it, it's early in the year, the refs want to make the right call. We can't sit there for 2.5, 3 minutes and on an obvious hit out of bounds off of them and still not know the call. I get it, there's things to look at, there's the clock, there's where is the ball going to be taken out. But that's not the only reason the flow of the game was ruined, but like we're just standing there, we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting.
The WNBA cannot afford to wait until the playoffs or next season to address these issues. They need a comprehensive review of officiating procedures, accountability measures for refs who consistently make incorrect calls, and a clear commitment to player safety, especially for stars who are being physically targeted by opponents. Coach White, despite her obvious frustration, maintained remarkable composure in her post-game comments. "I'm not going to sit here and blame the refs for our loss," she said, even though everyone watching knew she would have been fully justified in doing so. "But I will say this. Our players deserve better. The fans deserve better. The WNBA deserves better. The officials have a difficult job, but when there's a clear pattern of calls going against one team, it's something that needs to be addressed." Despite the heartbreaking loss, the future remains incredibly bright for the Indiana Fever. This was their first defeat of the season after an impressive start, and the narrow 1-point margin against a quality opponent like Atlanta suggests they can compete with anyone in the league, even when playing against both the opposing team and the officials. With Clark continuing to rewrite the record books, Boston developing into a dominant interior presence, and White proving herself to be one of the smartest strategists in the game, the Fever have all the ingredients for a championship run.
Start with some positive news. So Caitlin Clark last night went off for 27 points and 11 assists. And in her sophomore season, Clark now has the most 25-point, 10-assist games in WNBA history. She has only played in 42 games in her entire WNBA career, and she already has the record for this.
This loss might sting today, but it could very well become the rallying cry that propels Indiana to new heights as the season progresses. As for the officials, well, the spotlight is on them now more than ever. The days of ignoring blatant fouls against Clark or manufacturing phantom calls to disadvantage the Fever are numbered. The basketball world is watching, the fans are vocal, and accountability is coming, whether the refs like it or not. Because while one team might win a battle due to questionable officiating, the war for the heart and soul of women's basketball will ultimately be won by those who play the game the right way, coach with integrity, and refuse to be deterred by obstacles, whether those obstacles wear opposing jerseys or referee uniforms.